Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be learning about some of the most unexpected places that people have called home. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. A few years back, a woman allegedly turned a hollow grocery store sign into a fully functional micro apartment, while consumers shopped just a few feet below. What do you think? Is this an actual fact or just too good to be true? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is interstice. That's INTERSTICE. In its most basic sense, an interstice is a small intervening space between things, a sort of crevice or narrow cranny. While we often think of buildings as solid blocks of concrete and steel, they can actually have many tiny gaps where different structural elements meet but don't quite touch. In the world of architecture and urban exploration, an interstice represents the forgotten volume of a building that wasn't designed for a specific purpose but exists nonetheless. The word interstice originated with the Latin interstitium, which is a combination of inter, meaning between, and sistere, meaning to stand. Essentially, it describes something that stands between two other things. Historically, the term was used in a legal or ecclesiastical sense to describe a period of time between different events, but by the 17th century, it became the go-to word for physical gaps. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about people living in unexpected places. Number 1. A group of 8 artists successfully built a fully furnished secret apartment inside a busy Rhode Island shopping mall for 4 years. In 2003, the artist Michael Townsend and his friends noticed an unused 750 square foot cavity in the architecture of the Providence Place Mall. They decided to move in as a social experiment and a protest against the commercialization of the area. They managed to haul in a sofa, a rug, a hutch filled with china, even a Sony PlayStation. They were able to come and go for 4 years without mall security ever realizing they had neighbors living behind the cinder block wall. The apartment was located in a dead zone of a parking garage where ventilation shafts and support beams created a natural pocket. The residents would enter through a small hatch and sometimes lived there for weeks at a time, using the mall restrooms and eating in the food court. Number 2. A woman lived in a crawl space of a Japanese man's closet for an entire year without him knowing she was there. In 2008, a man in Fukuoka, Japan, was baffled when food started disappearing from his kitchen in the middle of the night. He eventually installed security cameras linked to his phone, expecting to catch a burglar or perhaps a neighborhood animal. To his shock, the footage showed a woman sliding out of the top of his closet once he left for work. Police found her curled up in a tiny, narrow space designated for storage. The woman reportedly moved in when the man left his door unlocked one day and managed to stay undetected for a full year. She had even brought in a small mattress and several plastic water bottles to make the cramped space more habitable. To stay undetected, she was incredibly careful to move only when he was deeply asleep, and the man admitted he never heard a sound, although it was obviously very creepy and probably made it harder to sleep after the discovery. Number 3. A resourceful man lived inside a hollowed-out section of the Manhattan Bridge for several years. In the early 2000s, New York City inspectors were stunned to find a man had constructed a small wooden room deep within the steel supports of the Manhattan Bridge. This apartment was suspended high above the ground and was accessible only by climbing up the bridge's massive iron beams. Inside, the man had a bed, a small library of books, and even a battery operated light. He had lived there, as comfortably as one could imagine, while thousands of commuters were rumbling overhead every single hour. This hidden home was actually surprisingly sophisticated. It even had insulated walls to dampen the sound of the trains and other things passing by. In another bit of attention to detail, the occupant figured out a way to secure his belongings so they wouldn't vibrate off the shelves during peak transit times. While the city eventually removed the structure for safety reasons, it stands as a testament to the incredible creativity and engineering skills of some people living on the margins. And it remains one of the most famous examples of so-called hidden New York history. Number 4. An adventurous group of friends turned a hollow space inside a bridge in Spain into a functional modern office. Designer Fernando Avellanas created a pop-up studio hidden underneath the bustling highway bridge in Valencia, Spain. Rather than a permanent residence, he built a movable platform that used the bridge's concrete beams as rails. By turning a hand crank, he could slide his entire office, complete with desk, chair, and shelves, out into the empty space over a river. This allowed him to work in total seclusion while the city's traffic buzzed just a few feet above his head. The design was inspired by the idea of a childhood fort, creating a sanctuary in an interstice that most people considered dead space. The structure was painted to blend in with the concrete, making it nearly invisible to anyone looking from street level. Avellanas kept the exact location a secret to prevent it from being dismantled by local authorities. His project sparked a global conversation about how we define usable space in overcrowded urban environments. And our fifth and final fun fact for today. In the late 1970s, a man lived in the attic of a famous department store in Paris and spent his nights exploring the luxury inventory. For several months, a former employee at a high-end Parisian department store used his knowledge of the building layout to hide in the rafters. He waited until the all-clear signal was given each night before descending into the showroom floors. He didn't steal items to sell. Instead, he lived a life of temporary luxury, sleeping in the most expensive beds and wearing designer suits. Then, he would carefully return everything to its place before the morning shift arrived. This real-life Phantom of the Opera scenario only came to an end when a night custodian noticed a faint trail of expensive cologne in a section of the store that should have been empty. The man was found tucked away in a small maintenance crawl space surrounded by luxury magazines and fine snacks. This story became a sensation in France, with many people amused by the man's refined taste and stealth. Now for some news you can use. While I would never suggest you take up residence inside the mall, department store, or one of their signs, I would recommend looking at your surroundings with an eye for those dead spaces that often go overlooked. Most of us are only paying attention to what's at eye level when we're organizing our homes, but we can maximize our living spaces by identifying the interstices or forgotten gaps in our floor plans. Start by walking through your home with a tape measure and looking for any gap wider than 3 inches, like the space between your fridge and the wall or an empty void behind the door. This will help your brain to stop seeing a room as a collection of furniture and start seeing it as a volume of usable cubic inches. To make the most of these spaces, consider adding a slide-out pantry rack for those narrow kitchen gaps, or installing over-the-door shelving that utilizes the vertical space we usually ignore. You can even use risers inside your existing cabinets to create a second layer of storage, effectively doubling your shelf space. By turning these dead zones into high-functioning storage hubs, you can declutter your main living areas and make even the smallest spaces feel like a spacious sanctuary. Finally, the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked, did a woman really take up residence inside a grocery store sign? Well, believe it or not, that's a fact. In April 2024, contractors working on the roof of the Family Fare supermarket in Midland, Michigan, discovered a 34-year-old woman living inside the store's large rooftop sign. She had managed to access the hollow space through a small door on the roof and had been living there undetected for about a year. Police were stunned to find she had installed flooring, a mini desk, a pantry for food, and even a houseplant. She had a computer and printer set up, which she powered by plugging into an outlet on the roof that was originally meant for the sign's lighting. Many people are surprised to learn that she was gainfully employed and simply preferred the privacy of her, quote, rooftop apartment. When she was finally discovered, police noted that she was very polite and simply packed up her things and left. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning about some of these unusual dwellings with me today, and be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.